great and desire your king, Clifford Jefferson, the descendant of folk of Jerusalem. He's the father of Godfrey, the fifth kind of man Jew. I'm also the reincarnation of King Edgar the Peaceful, also known as King Jefferson, who's going to have a peaceful territory once they know I'm back. And they know I'm back as of right now. Alongside me, joining me as sister from the house of Godwinson, who assisted our ancestors back in the day of the Battle of Hastings when William the Conqueror invaded our kingdom. Alongside me, as always, as well, his brother Archbishop Belmont from the house of Belmont. He also assisted from the Beaumont family, as well as his brother Murphy from the house of Murphy. He's always there assisting Archbishop from the house of Belmont in regards to protecting the English Spiritual Church of England. We have our students, Earl from the house of Burgess. He's been an Earl for a long time. Once again, Brother Earl, you there? He might have channeled out. Forgive him. He got up for 12 hours.
I'm here, King.
Oh, you there?
I'm
okay.
Here.
Just get the panel a little good information about the news you brought to your king.
Oh yeah, my 12-pound son was born March 9th, and I was up there doing the birth certificate, filling out, me and my wife, and I put English national as his ethnicity, and the lady, she already knew who I was. Knew who we were, excuse me. She was like, that's some big shoes to fill. That's what she told my wife, my son being an English national. And she was like, is your husband part of the Third Temple English Church? And I confirmed who I was to her. And she was like, you right there from where it started, Newport News, Virginia. So it was just felt good to see that they know who we are.
Yeah.
Yes, word getting out. There ain't gonna be no public revolution.
Like they already
it's gonna be quiet.
It's gonna be quiet.
Be quiet, baby.
Yes, sir. They already recognized. All right, this is the Englishman, the House of Burgess, mind you.
Yeah.
The House of Burgess. The House of Burgess was the first one who implemented your estate by calling himself freeman.
Freeman. Mm-hmm.
All right. All these founding fathers assumed the title as freeman, i.e. the planters. Well, we're going to show you where that term comes from, right here from the state of New Jersey. Don't believe us? Check it out. Let's go ahead.
Your surname, baby. I'm talking about God, the angels will hear my voice. We hear you, King.
All right. Before we go, let's start here. We need to deal with the middle colonies because there's 13 colonies. All right. We're reading about the King's Bench in Pennsylvania. All right. Now that's part of the middle colony. You got the northern, southern, and the middle colony. But what's important is about the middle colony because the middle colonies consist of New York, Pennsylvania, Delaware, New Jersey, and New York. All right. You don't believe me? Let's read it for ourselves.
Zoom in a little bit, King, so that the audience can be able to see it a little better.
Middle colony. You see those states? Can you see that?
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay. Okay, Brother Milligan, you start now. First, before you start, I just want the people to see that these are colonies. Delaware, New Jersey, New York, Pennsylvania. They are not states as of right now because it says middle colonies.
Mm-hmm.
Very important. Go ahead, Brother Milligan from the House of Milligan.
One problem is I don't know where this is. Is it on the Third Temple English Church website?
Yes. Yes. Are you on the website still? Are you on the Zoom?
Okay, I'm at the King. Yeah, I'm on Zoom, but I'm on the King's Proclamation. So we're on the website.
Oh, it shouldn't. Yeah, if you're on the Zoom, it should be showing the middle colony.
It should be showing that.
It should be showing that.
Okay, this is like a new phone, high tech. I don't know really what you working.
Send him another invite, Archbishop. Bear with us, public.
Okay, can you see it now?
This is not good. You said it's on the
If you
website.
if you're on your phone, yeah, if you're on your phone right now on the Zoom, it should show it on the Zoom page, Middle Colonies, on the share screen.
Let's just say Middle Colonies.
No, I'm not getting nothing.
Hold on, let's do this.
A regular phone call. That's all I'm getting.
Stop your share screen, King, and then do it again.
Okay. Okay.
Let me see.
Okay, I'm gonna start again, Brother Militant, from the House of Militant. Can you see now?
What I'm trying to explain to you is that the Zoom call I'm on is like a regular phone call.
Yeah.
So
You don't see no
screen.
screen,
So you don't actually have the screen.
Yeah, let someone else do the reading.
Okay, all right. I apologize, Brother Militant. I thought you was on the Zoom call. All right. I'll let somebody else do the reading. Okay, Brother Gray,
Yes, sir.
you mind reading?
No, sir.
Okay.
The Middle Colonies were a subset of the 13 colonies in British America, located.
Stop. You notice it said British America.
Yep.
It didn't say England. It said British. See, we got to look for those keys. Now, even if they would have put English, you got to know that it's not English. Because people say, well, why use Wikipedia? It has truth and lies and everything. So you can't believe everything you hear.
Yep.
So the mind knows truth and falsehood when you hear it. Something be like, oh no, that ain't right. If you're letting the mind, body follow the mind, then the mind will guide you right. If the mind follow the body, then best believe you're not going on the right track. So when it says the Middle Colonies were a subset of the 13 colonies of British America, you automatically know that they're talking about those who colonized America, because the land is owned by England.
Doing business as British.
Look at the next verbiage, what it said, located between the New England colonies. So you can't have British colonies if you don't got England colonies. Because the authority came from there. The first British monarch you got was King George I. All right, so we need to know that. And I'm gonna blow your mind when y'all see what I got for y'all. Continue to read, Brother Gray.
Located between the New England colonies and the Southern colonies, along with the Chesapeake colonies. This area now roughly makes up the mid-Atlantic states. Much of the area was part of New Netherland until the British exerted their control over the region. The British captured much of the area in their war with the Dutch around 1664, and the majority of conquered land became the province of New York. The Duke of York and the King of England would later grant others ownership of the land, which would become the province of New Jersey and the province of Pennsylvania. The Delaware colony later separated from Pennsylvania, which was founded by William Penn.
Stop. That's all you need to read. See, the thing about the King's Bench, people have to read the whole thing to grasp what it is that you're trying to find. And what I do is I go directly to what we need. I can go through a book and keep reading until I automatically zone in what I'm looking for. How I've done that, I don't know. How I know that, I'm about to show you. All right. Based on what you just read, an opening statement, it says much of the area goes back to the part of New Netherland. This goes to the Anglo and Dutch wars. All right. Until the British asserted their control over the region in 1664. It says it then became conquered became part of what we call the province of New York. New Jersey and New York were actually part of what we call a metropolitan area. It's still part of the same territory. Why? Because it's confined to the territory as within the charter of 1606. All right. It said that Duke of York and the King of England will later grant others. That's a grant. So now you recognize that England is ruling here and giving out grants. Because remember, I said the charter is not a government. It's powers and rights transferred by the document. authorized by the king who runs the government. So the King of England, which is not the King of England, because King James was a Roman Catholic, switched to Protestant. So he was not a English monarch. He was just sitting on the English throne, or what we call the crown. And it said those grants he gave was called the province of New Jersey and the province of Pennsylvania. And province of Pennsylvania is where your King's Bench was transferred to by way of the Supreme Court issued by the governor of Pennsylvania. Now we know every colony has a governor. Now, when you go back to the 1776 Revolutionary War, it clearly shows you that when Benjamin Franklin's son, William Franklin, he was locked up as a result of the creation of what we call the Provincial Congress in 1776, which locked up William Franklin and put in William Livingston. Mm-hmm. Remember that, very important for all those who feel this lesson. We just don't talk for nothing here. We teach. All right. Okay, since we understand now, based from that excerpt that Brother Gray from the House of Gray read, he said that the province of New York from 1664 was given by a grant from Duke of York, which established what we call other territories called the province of New Jersey and the province of Pennsylvania. Now let's look at, because it said 1664, very important. Because people say, well, what that got to do with today? This is what it got to do with today. Read this, Brother Gray. Let me blow it up. Go ahead.
I need to scroll up just a little bit, King.
Start from here.
Feudal tenures abolished. The feudal tenure estates and the incidents thereof taken away, discharged and abolished from and after March 12th, 1664 by Section 2 of an act entitled An Act Concerning Tenures, passed February 18th, 1795, shall so continue to be taken away, discharged, and abolished, and no such estate or any incident thereof shall at any time be created in any manner whatsoever.
Did y'all hear that? Well, it's telling you that any estate established under feudal tenure from 1664. Let's go back to the middle colonies. 1664. This is the New Jersey statute talking about the tenure estates are abolished, meaning that they all belong to the crown now. How we know that? Let's go ahead. I'm giving y'all the public Jews. This is legislation. This is the common law. This is you reading the altered or modified legislation from the original Constitution, now altered and modified into common language under New Jersey revised statute. Okay? Read what that says.
Certain tenures and holdings turned into free and common soakage. The tenures of honors, manors, lands, tenements, or hereditament, or of estates of inheritance at the common law, held either of the King of England or any other person or body, politic or corporate, at any time before July 4th, 1776, and declared by Section 3 of an act entitled An Act Concerning Tenures, passed February 18th, 1795, to be turned into holdings by free and common soakage from the time of their creation and forever thereafter, shall continue to be held in free and common soakage. Discharge of all tenures charges, and incidents enumerated in said section 3.
Okay, and this says the King of England. This is a 2021 statute, y'all. And they mentioned in the King of England. And how you know they're talking about a modern day King of England, because it says here, if you understand incorporation law, it says held either of the King of England or of any other person or body politics or corporate. That's through Title 16, Chapter 1, Section 28. Let's read it. Read that, brother Gray.
All right. Saving of rights under charters granted by Great Britain. Revised 1877, page 916.
Don't read all that. Just read
Okay.
first.
Being section 12 of an act entitled An Act to Incorporate the Trustees of Religious Societies, approved April 9th, 1875, saved from appeal. This section vested property held under charters of incorporation granted by Great Britain, incorporation created in place thereof.
Okay, so when you go back to 46:3-2, you're dealing with the King of England, body politics, or corporation. Remember, a charter is not a government unless it goes back to the origin of who gave the charter. Now, ain't no king here in America. So in order for the charter to be honored, there must be a king. And they say either by the King of England or person, body politic, or corporation. So by our incorporation to the state, we have now brought back the right of the constituent corporation that was a religious corporation known as the Church of England. And all those constituent rights have now transferred by way of the certificate of incorporation, which is uniform or synonymous with the charter. They are synonymous. All right, now I can go into other statutes, but for the sake of the lesson, we're gonna move forward. Okay, so we're talking about the King's Bench because the King is head of the King's Bench. And we know that as if we heard Todd states that anybody who's standing below the exchequer chamber is in hell. And we know that the King's Bench is ahead of the exchequer chamber and the exchequer of pleading. All right, so let's get a little whiff about that. Go to the King's Bench. Brother Gray, you continue to still read.
Okay.
Now look at the King's Bench. That's the Plantation flag. You see it right up there behind us? That's our other flag, our seal, and that's the Anjou, France. So even in the depictions, they're showing our authority. Nobody else can use this but us. All right, how I know this, read what it says, Brother Gray from House of Gray. The Court of the King.
The Court of the King's Bench, formerly known as the Court of the King before the King himself, was a court of common law in the English legal system. Created in a late 12th to early 13th century from the Curia Regis.
Yes. Now this is, let me just light this up so we can know what that is. Because you asked what, my wife asked what that word means, arula, courageous.
Mhm.
And that was somebody else's interpretation, but the origin of what we said, the King's Bench was started by William the Conqueror and what we call the Curia Regis. And this is it's a Latin term, means a royal council or king's court. It was named given to the council or advisors, administrators in medieval Europe who served kings, including kings of France, Norman kings of England, Sicily kings of Poland, and kings of the queens of Scotland. All right, Normans following their conquest of England. You hear that? I just said Curia Regis started William the Conqueror. William the Conqueror invaded England. Before William the Conqueror invaded England, it was called Wittemar. It says Normans following the conquest of England used a council called the Curia Regis to conduct much of the business state in England. It was similar to, but not the same as Wittemar. You hear that? Or Witten, which divided the Anglo-Saxon kings of England, and the Curia Duces, which served the Dukes of Normandy. This council existed in two forms, one large and one smaller form. The council in the smaller form, which was in continuous session, was made up of the king's officers of the state and those magnates who were of the court. The smaller council was known as the lesser Curia Regis. The lesser Curia Regis was the essence of the king's royal court, and as such was an internate court that followed the king in all his travels. All right, let's go back. Continue to read, Brother Gray. Any questions? Everybody follow along?
Tracking.
Yes.
Anybody confused?
I'm with you, King.
I'm asking, anybody confused? I'll stop when I backtrack.
Not yet, King.
Not yet.
Now, if I ask a question, I expect y'all to know this.
Understood.
All right. Continue to read, Brother Gray from the House of Gray.
The King's Bench initially followed the monarch on his travels. The King's Bench finally joined the Court of Common Pleas and Exchequer of Pleas in Westminster Hall in 1318, making its last travels in 1421.
Stop. Now, did we just read in the Title 42, Section 502 of the Pennsylvania statute that the same thing in regard to the King's Bench in Westminster Hall is going back to the origin of the King's Bench? We read now.
Mhm.
Now, that's got to be strange that they got the same language in the modern day statute. So that means you got to be in England.
That's just
Or
about
Bishop.
And point of interest, remember that what they did was they felt that the laws that we had back then, it was so many of them. So what they did, they just codified it to make it easier for the modern times. So
Yes.
like you said, none of the stuff back then left. It's just been codified, and you need to know what's applicable to you based off what you're reading.
Yes, well said.
the state.
All right. Go ahead, CA.
Yep, it's the latter day and the modern day statutes. They may have changed the word or the phonetics, and here we're dealing with certain things like the states changing it from colonies, which is a violation of their charter and law. However, the terms that are used, like Curia Regis and Wigmore, are all dealing with things dealing with the Court of Exchequer, or the Court of the King's Consciousness, the King's Bench. So each modern day statute has a latter day term, point of reference.
Yes.
Mhm.
And remember, we're just reading about, we're in New Jersey. It said we're talking about all the middle colonies, and just not the middle colonies, all the 13 colonies, because every 13 colonies got a governor. So if we deal with the middle colonies, every middle colony was superseded by a King's Bench.
Oh, and one more point of interest, King, is that each modern day statute that is applicable, remember right now they're using stare decisis
Yeah.
in most of your court cases, but each, even if you're invoking the Court of Common Law of England jurisdiction in your venue, each one of these statutes go back to England or English common law to further reiterate the rule of law or the natural law in your jurisdiction or the law of the land. So, you'll qualify each one of your claims, writs, via its modern day statute. Like here in Khalifa, California territory, their constitutional charter also references the Magna Carta in its corporate charter. So further reiterating that each state does utilize English law in their common law or constitutional statutes. I yield.
Smith versus Alabama. I mean, the United States has no common law other than the common law of England. And that's their dice. That's what their case law say. So we don't depend on case law because we're not interested in the opinion of a judge. You interpret what this law says because it's clear. Ain't no other interpretation we need to be said. Even if you say it in the modern day, it still talks about Westminster Hall, and that goes back to the Middle Ages. So you can talk it in modern day, or we can talk it in our language. We can still satisfy the court. All right? Go ahead, Brother Greg. Let's rock.
The King's Bench was merged into High Court of Justice by the Supreme Court of Judicature Act 1873 after which point the King's Bench was a division within the High Court. The King's Bench was staffed by one Chief Justice, now the Lord Chief Justice of England and Wales, and usually 3 puissants,
Presumed justice.
puissant justices.
Okay, that's fine. So that's talking, and that's called Lord Chancellor. Chief Justice is Lord Chancellor. And Lord Chancellor is keeper of the king's consciousness.
Mhm.
He's not a judge, he's a minister.
Exactly.
He's a minister. All right. So since we're talking about the King's Bench, and we see that the King's Bench goes back to the time of the 12th century, all the way up to modern day Pennsylvania, and we understand that the King's Bench is headed by the Chancery, and what sits below it is the courts of Executive Chamber and the courts of Common Pleas. So now the problem now we have to find out is the jurisdiction, and we already found the jurisdiction of the King's Bench. It's just reiterated by way of us seeing it for ourselves. Give me 1 second. King's Bench jurisdiction. Now this is Wikipedia. Now we just seen the statute talking about the King's Bench jurisdiction in Pennsylvania. Now read the King's Bench jurisdiction in Wikipedia. 1 second.
And point of interest, and brothers and sisters who are following along, if you notice the numbers on the points that we're reading from Wikipedia, it will take you straight to the reference where they're getting it from. All of this stuff is literally written down in other points if you want to get another point of view besides Wikipedia, for those who are like that.
Give me a second. I hope my computers don't act up. It's doing that spin thing again. Hold on. Give me a second. Just let it clear. Come on now. Don't do this to me.
And once again, for the viewers who are
Y'all get some
along,
input, yeah.
please like and share these videos, subscribe down there at the bottom. This is the only way you're going to be able to pretty much stay up with the King's Bench as well as the Third Temple English Church regarding us English heirs here within the British American colonies.
Yes, sir. Yes,
That's
sir.
right. Right. Point of interest, man. Like the Archbishop was saying, man, if you like these videos, if are helping you, if you are educated, if you feel, like, share, and subscribe, man. The King is doing an awesome work. It takes a real eye of the tiger to be able to pick out this information and serve it to you in the form of education. So, definitely want to show our appreciation for our King, our Queen, and the Archbishop.
And it's very well appreciated. Not many can do this. Many are called, but few are chosen. And it's not what you have. It's what you yield with what you have. And a lot of the stuff that we have at our disposal has been here, and nobody has been able to yield the power because it's not going back to the original source.
Mm-hmm.
And the power that comes from the source is power that's distorted. And power is the result of force, nothing more. Once it's done its job, it don't exist. And if it doesn't fulfill its purpose, what was the need for the power to be there in the first place?
Exactly. Point of interest on my mother's side, the Owen side, the family crest, it says "Utilius ves estis," which is Latin for "force is useless." And like I said, what is the power for useful for if it doesn't come from the source? I trust that everyone at the sound of my voice is here at this lesson is divinely guided into this particular place. Like you said, like Yeshua said to his messenger Elijah, you go to that certain brook, and there will I sustain ye. So the lessons are very much prevalent for your salvation. Your heraldry and your surname tells a story. Oftentimes, when I came into the King's Bench and we did our dissertation, it opened my eyes to my ancestral claim entail since time immemorial. There, like you said, like Excalibur, you couldn't pull, nobles couldn't pull that sword of truth from the rock and it took a certain man's hands to be able to pull that. That's where we give reverence. That's why we give high honors to all of the divine prophets, Yeshua, Buddha. You know, you give divine honors to those who are able to bring a divine message, especially in an important crisis time like we find ourselves in now. Your birthright has been usurped and subjugated, and here you found you are the light for yourself, your family, your community, to bring forth this truth and knowledge. And it is the truth that inside you that is radiating with this knowledge. That's why you're here. So upon your being here, you gather this particular knowledge only to, if you could disqualify it, then so shall you. But you couldn't, and you can't, only because it's a particular truth. You know, everyone, it said every knee shall bow, every tongue shall confess. So yeah. That abrogated abstract truth, these are all codified language to a particular truth. You're all here at this particular venue because of that said truth. So I do give high honors to our king, our queen, archbishop, and all of my prospective brothers here on the King's Bench from their prospective houses. It is an honor to be amongst the nobility of this modern day time as we qualify it via the statutes used by our English heritage and our surnames. I yield.
Well said. My screen closed, so I'm gonna have to go do it and open it up as we go along. All right, that's the only way I can do it. Thank God I got it all up here. So now we left off with the King's Bench. We understand the King's Bench goes back to 1215. Actually, it preceded. It goes back to the 10th century under William the Conqueror until it was dissolved in the 12th century under the Parliament of England under the House of what we call Plantagen. All right, so let's go here now. Let's see if I can navigate from here. Okay, here we go. Now here we go. Brother Grant, you can still read. Now, one thing I want us to realize that when we're dealing with the colonies, as we said, the middle colonies consist of New York, Delaware, Pennsylvania, and what was the other one? New York, Delaware, Pennsylvania, New Jersey. Yeah, okay. And we're here in New Jersey because we know that the America declared their independence from New Jersey in 1776 from Great Britain. Mm-hmm. All right. It wasn't recognized till 1783. But we understand that that's an agreement, that's a contract, that's a charter. All right. And we know that there's three types of charter governments or assumed charter government. We know, like, as I said, charters are not government. They're just transmission documents for powers and rights. So now we understand that the first one is the Constitution. First charter is the Constitution of first class commissioned by the Crown with instructions attached. It's called a commission. When trustees are put in offices, they're commissioned either by the Crown under the authority of a royal governor or by the state under the authority of a regular governor. But we must precede this government because we're English heirs. And we're not subject to the laws of the state. So therefore, there's a problem with jurisdiction. Jurisdiction, I mean, declared law. What law is being declared? And law is unclear. So in order for us to understand that, and law protection, we must go back to what preceded this law. And we know that the Constitution, once again, was a contract between, in the verbiage of the contract of July 2nd, 1776, because Virginia Constitution came first, then came New Jersey, then came, if I'm not mistaken, Pennsylvania, then New York, in that somewhat fashion. But when you're dealing with the origin of the charter was the limit encumbrances of the colonists, because you're speaking about the king who granted the charter, the Constitution, for the colonists to set up some type of power to govern themselves, i.e. power and authority. So when you're dealing with the charter of 1776, what existed before that? Now you got to go into the charters given to the proprietaries of New Jersey, because this is where our home base is. Because New Jersey, probably calling New Jersey, if it's called Jersey, a part of Channel Island, the flag you see behind Brother Scott. That was the flag flying here. All right. So we have to work our way back through time. This brings us to what we call the concession agreement of the Lord Proprietaires, which was the original Constitution of New Jersey. Because the Proprietaires, George Carteret and John Berkeley, succeeded it back to the crown in 1702. So if George Carteret and John Berkeley succeeded their grant to the crown in 1702, then anything after that is dissolved. Why? Because 46:3-2 of the revised statute just said that any type of feudal tenure held from 1664 before or after is now dissolved.
Mm-hmm.
This particular grant was based off feudal tenure. So that makes sense to everybody.
Absolutely.
That makes sense, Brother Grant, Brother Gray?
Yes, sir.
Brother Milligan, that makes sense to you?
Because you got to remember who brought in feudal tenure into the kingdom.
Okay. All right.
Yes.
All right. I heard you, Brother Milligan.
See how you got an arrow there, how you could push it over to see more people, right? No?
Yeah. Earl Burgess, Brother Milligan. I see y'all. All right, cool. All right, let's get to it.
Okay.
Brother Milligan. Oh, you can't read. That's right. Brother Gray, continue.
The concession and agreement of the Lord Proprietors of the province of New
Proprietaires. Lord
Oh.
Proprietaires.
Proprietaries of the province of New Caesarea, Caesarea, or New Jersey, to and with all and every the adventurers and all such as shall settle or plant there. 1664.
Now, what was the year of the Middle Colonies? 1664.
1664.
What was the year of that statute 46:3-1? 1664.
64.
Now, when you look at the time era, this is the time of the Proprietaires, George Carteret and John Berkeley. Now, just read what it says.
In prime,
Archbishop, Brother Gray.
And we're past our 30-minute point.
Okay, we'll see y'all back here shortly in a second. Peace and love.
Peace and love.